You know, this month is my birth month, but it is also our nation's birth month as well. Little known fact: the song Who Lives, Who Dies, Who Tells Your Story from Hamilton paints a bad image as far as Hamilton is concerned. You see, there was such a person as Alexander Hamilton. Hold on, you guys. Here we go. Okay, so one Mr. Alexander Hamilton was murdered by a colleague of his, one Mr. Aaron Burr. The song goes, who lives, who dies, who tells your story? And throughout the whole musical of Hamilton, we see the musical through the eyes of Aaron Burr and the family and friends of one Mr. Alexander Hamilton. What we don't get to see is it through his eyes. We see it through Aaron Burr's eyes, we see it through Angelica, Eliza, George Washington, so on and so forth. But in the musical, we see it through everyone else's eyes except for Alexander's. You're probably wondering why. We are technically seeing it through Alexander's eyes, but we're also seeing it through his friends, his family, etc. Now, why is that? Well, the birth of our nation happened during the Revolutionary War. In other words, we sent our Constitution, written by the Founding Fathers, which Alexander Hamilton was at that signing, but I'm not going to go into that. He was there, but he wasn't a part of the cabinet board, whatever you want to call it, until much later on down the road. During the war. Sorry. I have sleep in my eye. And then, so, why do we have a musical based around his life? Well, Lin-Manuel Miranda, who had done Into the Heights, wanted to do a new musical upon the Founding Fathers. Who did he choose to do it? Who did he choose to do it on? Obviously, Alexander Hamilton. But why? When asked that, he simply replied that he had read a book about Alexander Hamilton's life and tragic death. And from what he told news reporters, etc., he based it around that and based the characters that they were portraying around friends, family, etc., of Mr. Alexander Hamilton. But then he also sat there and he said, when you hear stuff like Alex got better, but his mother went quick, That tells you all you need to know about him, about how he wanted to survive, thrive, etc. And, initially how he wanted to, live his life through hell or high water. Now, Alexander Hamilton, much like Lin-Manuel Miranda, was an immigrant. And in Lin-Manuel's own words, he said, I fell in love with Alexander Hamilton because him and I share the same connection, that we both were immigrants that came from the same basic place to a country where we weren't wanted or accepted at the time. The difference between Alexander was, yes, he was accepted for a short time up until his death and up until he had done what he had done. He lived a pretty good life, of what I was told in history class, as well as historians have often glorious life for being a poor man. But then you see people sitting there talking about how he died just as fast as he came to America. But he did want to talk more about slavery, and unfortunately, before he could, he met Mr. Burr on the battlefield. If you've seen Hamilton, you know what happens, okay? But if you haven't, Hamilton and Burr challenge each other to a duel. Hamilton shoots up, Burr shoots him. Hamilton dies. Burr never got actually convicted at the time, but he did later on down the road. He came clean, said, hey, he told Elizabeth, aka Eliza, everything. Okay? He told Eliza everything that had happened to her husband. She never forgave him. As far as historians are, as far as historians know, she has never forgiven him. But Eliza, in Eliza's eyes, Hamilton could do no wrong, and then that's when her son dies, and she's like, you're not welcomed here. You're the one that told my son to go do this. You. And it was even worse when she had found out about Maria Reynolds through the Reynolds pamphlet. And again, she was furious. I mean, okay, in the comments below, would you have actually sat there and, said something like that to your husband or wife, if you found out that they cheated on you? I know I would, but let me know in the comment section. Angelica did marry a rich and very powerful rich man. She did introduce Eliza to Hamilton. She did. She had. Okay, so I'm gonna have to applaud certain aspects of Hamilton for getting their historical facts before opening up. And yes, Eliza did have siblings. Hamilton had no family whatsoever due to a hurricane and his mother getting sick. His father did leave the house when he was a wee little one, but his cousin did commit suicide, as far as historians have understood it, and Hamilton came here to the United States, seeking fame, fortune, etc., and found the war, had found friends, had found everything, including a love life. But he also found death after the war. What a lot of people don't know about Hamilton, Alexander, what a lot of people don't know about Alexander was he was actually going after Angelica Schuyler to actually marry her. Her father rejected the idea of him marrying Angelica because she's the oldest. She needs to provide, or she needs to find a man that will provide for her. So he said, you ain't having Angelica. You ain't having none of my daughters. Originally. So then he goes to war. He goes to war with George Washington and all of the other people. And soon after he goes into the war, Mr. Schuyler, who, mind you, didn't just have 3 children. Oh no. Yes, there are 3 that is talked about. Angelica, Peggy, and Eliza. Those 3 are primarily the ones that you hear more about, thanks in part to Hamilton. But he did have more children than just them 3. He had, I think, don't quote me on this, but I believe it was 18 kids altogether, which was not unheard of back then. It's unheard of today in today's standards, but very seldom people actually have that many kids in today's society. But so then you have, so he had 18 kids, and then he marries Angelica to this rich suitor, marries Eliza to Hamilton, and Peggy gets married. She's off doing her own thing. I don't know where she's at this point. But whatever happened to the rest of the kids from the Schuyler clan in the musical Hamilton? For time and all that was cut. So guys. Allergies. Well, as I was saying, though. Okay. As I was saying, though, before my nose started wanting to sneeze, um, a lot of it was time and budget. Originally, they were going to introduce the other Skylar siblings, which consisted of the older kids and the younger kids. But Lin-Manuel Miranda sat there and said, we won't add to them, but we won't, incorporate them. But Mr. and Mrs. Skylar, who is Angelica, Peggy, and Eliza's mom and dad, had about 18 kids. So, historically confirmed and legitimately their kids. Now, Angelica had 5, 6, 7, 8 kids, I think. Eliza had about the same number. Peggy had maybe 3 before she passed away. And those kids are all confirmed to be their mother's children. And yes, one of Eliza's kids did get shot and killed. Historically correct. Confirmed, I should say. It was her son. And then, so basically, here you have all these kids. It's all confirmed. And it's all documented. But if you could do me a huge favor, like, subscribe, comment what your favorite musical is, and based around history, and I'll do a video on it. But yeah. Whoops. Okay.